The hospital still smelled like antiseptic and grief. I stood there, staring at the empty bed where my mother had taken her last breath just hours before. Her hands had gone cold, while mine still clung to hers, begging for one more heartbeat. But there was none. The doctor gave his condolences. The nurse offered a tissue. I just nodded, eyes hollow. I didn't cry. Not yet. Not until I got the call. "Mr. Moore, this is Stephanie with Whitmore and Lane Legal Services. I'm sorry to reach you so soon, but your wife has filed for emergency eviction proceedings. Your presence is requested at the courthouse at noon." I blinked. "You mean divorce?" "No, sir. Eviction. She's claiming you're an unlawful occupant at the Westlake property, based on a tenancy dispute. That house was my mother's. And your wife just filed that she has sole tenancy rights. Based on, well, you would need to see it yourself." I dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the hospital tile with a crack that echoed louder than the flatline I'd heard that morning. She did it. She waited until my mother died and within 6 hours filed to have me removed from my own home. By the time I got back to the house on Westlake Hills Drive, a sheriff's notice was already taped to the door. 30 days to vacate. No contest. The property had never been formally transferred into my name after my father passed. And now, with my mother gone, the paperwork hung in probate limbo. Vanessa knew this. She'd waited for it, planned for it. Inside the house, she stood at the staircase, holding her coffee, like nothing happened. "I figured it was better for both of us this way," she said, not even looking me in the eye. "You filed before we scheduled the funeral. I filed before you started drinking your grief into a pity blanket and crawling back into your past." My fists curled, but I didn't scream, didn't threaten. Instead, I looked around the house my mother built. The piano she tuned every weekend. The chair she used to read in. The curtains she sewed by hand when money was tight. All still here. All now hers. No, not for long. I turned to Vanessa and whispered, "Enjoy it while it's still yours." She smirked. "What are you going to do, Ethan? Cry into the will?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't going to cry. I was going to calculate. And next time I walked through that door, it'd be with a court order, a digital ledger, and a camera team. The apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom, window that stuck, a smell of old paint, and someone else's regrets in the walls. It wasn't mine, not yet, but it would do, because I didn't need comfort. I needed distance, and time, and silence. The kind of silence that lets you hear your enemy breathe. I hadn't spoken to Vanessa since the day she evicted me. Didn't answer her texts, all clinical, legal sounding now. Didn't contact Chloe, though God knows I wanted to. Instead, I buried myself in boxes of files, old deeds, emails from my mum, receipts from furniture purchases going back 8 years. And there it was, a copy of the original rental contract for West Lake Hills, signed between my mother and Vanessa when we first moved in after the wedding. Dated, stamped, filed. It listed Vanessa as a temporary resident under care of owner. And here's the kicker, Clause 5B. Any change of ownership or residency status requires notarized consent from the owner or estate executor. That consent never came because my mum died before the probate finished. And that meant Vanessa, she didn't have squat. I slid the file into my case folder, labeled it Primary Weapon Title Dispute. I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to tear down everything she'd built on that lie. Next, I hired a new legal team, not from Austin, from El Paso, where my father once served as a judge. His name still held weight. Within 72 hours, they'd filed a motion to challenge the eviction on grounds of fraud and early seizure of unprocessed estate assets. That froze everything. Vanessa wouldn't know until it landed in her mailbox. I imagined her standing there in her robe, coffee in hand, reading the document with her lip twitching. Good. Let her sip that slowly. On Thursday night, I got a call from an old neighbor. "Hey man, just thought you should know, Vanessa's having people over again. Realtors it looked like. She's talking about remodeling the guest room." I smiled. She still thought she'd won. Good. The best part of revenge is letting them decorate the walls just before you tear the whole house down. And I was just getting started. She was waiting by the flagpole when I pulled up, hair in a ponytail, backpack slung low, wearing the same unicorn hoodie I bought her last Christmas, before I became a ghost in her house. She didn't see me right away. I didn't honk, didn't wave, just watched for a second. She looked older, taller, like time had moved differently in her world. And maybe it had. The school counselor, Ms. Bennett, had helped set this up, unofficial, off the books. "She misses you," she'd said over the phone, even if she doesn't know how to say it. Chloe spotted me when she reached the sidewalk, paused, didn't smile, didn't frown either, just stared. "Hi, kiddo," I said. "Mom said you were gone." "I'm still here." She shrugged, glancing down the block like she was checking for Vanessa's car. "She says you didn't want to be a dad anymore." I swallowed, hard, but I didn't let it show. "She said a lot of things, huh?" "Yeah," Chloe muttered. "She says you were sad and angry and messy, that Grandma hated having you live there." That last part hit deeper than I expected, but I nodded slowly. "Want to hear something weird?" I asked. She looked up. "What?" "Grandma left you something your mum never found." She tilted her head, curious now. "What is it?" I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a tiny, hand-carved wooden charm, a bear with crooked paws. Chloe had made it in art class when she was 6. "Your mum tossed it. Grandma kept it in her jewelry box. She said you gave it to her for protection." Chloe's lips parted slightly. "She kept it? Every day?" Silence again. Then, "Can I keep it back?" "Only if you promise to keep it safe this time." She nodded, slipped it into her pocket like it was sacred. And maybe it was. When I dropped her off at home, she didn't go inside right away. She lingered on the porch, looked at me through the window, then mouthed, "I don't believe everything she says." And I knew I had just gotten something back that Vanessa could never fake. Not title, not property, not jewelry, trust. And that was the crack in the wall I needed. I wasn't surprised she went for the jewelry first. Vanessa had always had a thing for sparkle, especially if it wasn't hers. 2 weeks after my mother's funeral, I checked the safe in her old bedroom. Empty. The velvet-lined box was gone. So were the appraisal certificates, a $32,000 inheritance in antique brooches, rings, and one diamond-studded bracelet from the 1950s. She'd said once, "Your mum always kept those locked up like she was hiding treasure." She wasn't hiding it. She was protecting it. But Vanessa, she didn't protect anything but herself. What Vanessa didn't know, or didn't remember, was that last year, after a break-in scare, I had discreetly installed a micro GPS tracker in the clasp of the bracelet. It looked like a stone. It was actually a $200 tag linked to a secure server on my old dev team's system. I opened the dashboard. Ping, last movement, yesterday, 5:41 p.m. Destination, Tennyson and Locke Estate, Liquidators, 23rd Street, downtown Austin. I smiled. She was getting sloppy. The estate office was closed, but I knew how to get what I needed. I called Tony, a friend from my startup days, who now ran security for 3 major auction houses. An hour later, I had internal camera footage. And there she was, Vanessa, in a green blazer and sunglasses, wheeling in a black velvet-lined case. Talking, laughing, signing consignment forms. The tech paused the footage and zoomed in. "You want me to pull the contract she signed?" Tony asked. "Already did," I said, lifting a folder. She had signed the pieces over as gifts left to her by a late mother-in-law. Fraud. Documented. Time-stamped. I walked out of the security office with a flash drive and a paper trail. Not just proof of theft. Proof of intent. She was trying to liquidate inheritance assets during probate, and that was a crime in this state, especially when done before estate transfer was finalized. Back in my apartment, I placed the evidence folder on the table. One more step closer. I stared at the velvet case on my screen, the one that used to sit under my mother's bed. "You think it's just jewelry," I said aloud, "but it's the key to your whole house burning down." And I wasn't just going to take it back. I was going to make her hand it over herself. She opened the curtains every morning at 6:45. Same window, same robe, same half glass of lemon water, like clockwork. What she didn't realize, what she never even considered, was that the bedroom window she opened every morning now faced mine, because I'd bought the house next door. Not directly, of course. I used a shell LLC, one registered out of Wyoming under a friend's holding company. The seller never knew who the buyer really was. And Vanessa? She didn't pay attention to the "for sale" sign that disappeared overnight. She was too busy playing queen of a castle she didn't own yet. I furnished the house sparsely. Just a desk, a coffee machine, 2 laptops, a pair of high-resolution directional mics pointed through reinforced window frames, and the most important upgrade of all, an AI-powered security rig tied to facial recognition and thermal imaging, programmed to track movement only within her property line. I wasn't breaking the law. I was watching my investment. Within days, I knew her schedule better than she did. Mondays, Pilates, brunch, then Zoom call with her divorce lawyer. Wednesdays, Chloe's therapy session, which she never attended. Fridays, wine night with friends who all secretly hated each other, but it was Thursday night that changed everything. Because that's when he arrived. Tall, navy suit, car with no plates. He brought paperwork. She poured him whiskey. They toasted, laughed, signed. I hit record, zoomed in on the documents. They weren't labeled, but I caught just enough of the header. Revised Estate Access Agreement, Executor Consent Waiver. They were trying to fabricate consent from my mother's estate, to push the probate through, to finalize the asset transfer before the fraud caught up with them. Back inside my new kitchen, I copied the files onto a hard drive labeled Phase 2. Vanessa thought the walls were hers, that the paintings, the appliances, even the damn herb garden belonged to her now. She didn't know the walls were listening, didn't know the neighbor was the man she'd buried in paperwork. And soon, she'd hear his voice again, in court, under oath, with every angle recorded. She walked in wearing red, not fire truck red, blood red, the kind of color you wear when you think you've already won. Vanessa thought she was meeting a private estate consultant to help her accelerate inheritance logistics by bypassing the final stages of probate. In truth, she was meeting my friend Lena, a corporate contract lawyer, moonlighting for justice. And every inch of that suite, the lamp, the mirror, the room service tray, had hidden cameras. Lena played the part perfectly. Neutral blazer, fake business card, clipboard with legalese that sounded sophisticated but meant absolutely nothing. "You just need to sign the acknowledgement page," she said. "It confirms you're the beneficiary per agreed estate terms." Vanessa didn't even read it. She flipped straight to the bottom and signed. "Do I get a copy?" "Absolutely. It'll be emailed once countersigned." Vanessa smiled like a woman who had no idea the rope she'd just tightened around her own throat. What she actually signed was a notarized statement admitting she knew Ethan Moore, me, had not given consent to transfer property. She claimed inheritance from a non-relative through informal verbal agreement. She had no documentation proving her executor status. She waived her right to dispute ownership if fraud was uncovered, and she said it all on camera. Her voice, her words, her signature. 2 hours later, I sat in my neighbor house, watching the footage in crystal clarity. She didn't even flinch when she said, "Men like him? Too sentimental to fight." All I had to do was wait for his mom to die. I paused the video there, rewound, played it again. Wait for his mom to die. That line would live forever. I labeled the drive, Exhibit A, voluntary admission. Next up, Exhibit B, the night she'd throw her little memorial party and find out who had been watching her all along. The backyard was dressed like a magazine spread. Soft white lights strung between oak trees. Tables with linen cloths and charcuterie boards. A jazz quartet tuning up near the fire pit. Vanessa spared no expense. It was, after all, a memorial in honor of her beloved mother-in-law. The same woman she'd gutted, looted, and erased from the estate papers. But tonight wasn't hers. It was mine. I arrived early. Not to the party. That would have been suicide. I came through the back server panel of the home's smart display system. Remember the contractor who installed the new surround system after Mum passed? Yeah, that was me, under an alias, with full admin access and a master trigger. 7:17 p.m. Guests mingling. Vanessa glowing in a red halter dress, holding court near the pool. She tapped her glass. "If I could have your attention just for a moment." She smiled wide. Fake sadness practiced in the mirror, her voice soft, trembling with sincerity. Evelyn Moore was more than just my mother-in-law. She was my inspiration. Her love built this home, and I only hope I can honor her by... The screen behind her blinked. Static, then a flicker. She turned, froze. Footage played. Her laughing during the jewelry sale. It's not theft if the old bat's already gone. Her signing the fake inheritance waiver. "He won't fight. He's broken. Just let me collect." Her with the mystery man in the study whispering, "Backdate it. If we make it look like she signed before the stroke, no one can challenge it." Gasps. A wine glass shattered. The quartet stopped, mid-song. Vanessa spun toward the screen, face drained of color. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" Too late. Ubijik. I sat in my car down the street, live streaming the whole thing from my tablet. Neighbors texted. A lawyer from my firm emailed, "That was nuclear. Brilliant. She's finished." And Chloe, she sent one message. "I always wondered. Now I know." Vanessa didn't make a speech after that. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even stay. She fled, heels in hand, sobbing, face wet from more than just wine. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because grief doesn't have to scream. Sometimes it just presses play. The courtroom was half full. The rest of the seats were taken up by silence and stares. Vanessa sat 3 rows ahead, flanked by her new lawyer, not the one from before. That man had formally recused himself after the footage leak. She didn't look at me, not once, but the tremble in her jaw told me she knew. This wasn't about saving the estate anymore. This was about survival. My attorney, Ms. Delaney, stood confidently. Your Honor, we're submitting evidence of fraudulent claims made against Mr. Moore's legal right to the property located at Westlake Hills. Additionally, we request that the court freeze all asset transfers initiated by the defendant until a full investigation into estate manipulation and document falsification is complete. The judge, a seasoned woman in her 60s with no time for theatrics, nodded slowly. She had seen the footage. Everyone had. It was evidence. It was narrative. And most damningly, it was her words. Vanessa's lawyer scrambled. Objection. These recordings were obtained under deceptive pretense and signed by your client willingly, Delaney shot back. The signature is admissible, as is her verbal acknowledgement of illegal asset seizure. The judge raised a hand. That's enough. I've heard more than I needed. She shuffled a few papers. Effective immediately, the court recognizes Ethan Moore as the rightful heir to the Westlake Hills property, pending estate closure. The defendant's claims are null until reviewed by a separate fraud panel. All current liquid assets of the defendant are to be frozen to prevent further dissipation. A gavel dropped. Just like that, the house was mine. Jammed. Outside the courthouse, I didn't say a word. Reporters tried. Mr. Moore, did you orchestrate the video leak? How does it feel to reclaim the estate after your wife's betrayal? Do you have anything to say to her? I just looked into the nearest camera and said, I didn't take anything back. I just made sure the truth did. That afternoon, I walked into the house for the first time in 47 days. Same smell, same hallway, but it didn't feel like mine, not yet, until I found it, a photo. Me, Chloe, and my mum, taken on her last birthday, still in the same frame. Vanessa had left it on the floor, cracked but unbroken, just like me. I heard the knock before the gate bell rang. Soft, hesitant. I didn't check the monitor. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, Vanessa stood there, no makeup, eyes puffy, wearing a hoodie too big for her frame. Not the woman in red heels who threw parties for ghosts. This one looked smaller, older, desperate. Behind her, Chloe stood clutching a weekend bag. She didn't make eye contact. Neither did Vanessa, not at first. You win, she said quietly. You took it all back. The house, the money, the narrative. I didn't speak. Let silence sit with her for once. I came to ask for one thing, she added. I want Chloe to come home. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes, I cut in. You used a child as a weapon. You buried the woman who raised me before the dirt settled. You forged documents. That's not a mistake, Vanessa. That's war. She sniffled. I wasn't trying to hurt Chloe. I thought I was protecting her. You thought she wouldn't choose, I said. But she already has. I looked past her, straight at Chloe. You okay, kiddo? She nodded, slowly, then stepped forward, past her mother, through the gate, right into my arms. Vanessa's breath hitched. Chloe, she whispered. The girl didn't turn around. didn't say goodbye. That night, we made mac and cheese, her favorite. She told me about school, her friends, the poem she wrote about Grandma Evelyn. And before she went to bed, she asked one question. Are you mad at Mom? I thought for a moment. I'm done being mad, I said, but I'm not done making sure she never gets the chance to hurt us again. She nodded, like she understood more than a 13-year-old ever should. And as she climbed the stairs, I realized I hadn't just taken back the house, or the name, or the legacy. I'd taken back what mattered most. The part of me Vanessa never really saw. My heart. Vanessa always underestimated two things. One, my ability to disappear. Two, my ability to reappear louder. So when she took to social media, I knew she was flailing. A grainy Instagram live, a trembling voice. I was manipulated, gaslit. I made mistakes, yes. But Ethan, he was never who you all thought he was. He hacked me. He stalked me. He turned our daughter against me. The comments section was already turning before the stream even ended. Because I was ready. The night before, I had handed everything over to a journalist friend. Signed false inheritance forms. Video clips of her selling stolen jewelry. Court records showing her eviction motion within 6 hours of my mother's death. Chloe's own quiet message, recorded voluntarily. He didn't turn me against her, he just showed me who she already was. The story hit the front page of the Austin Ledger by sunrise. The widow who wasn't, inside the inheritance war that shook West Lake Hills. Vanessa's live stream barely got 2,000 views. The Ledger article, over 300,000. And counting. Podcasts picked it up. Commentators debated her ethics. Even a true crime docuseries producer sent an inquiry. Vanessa tried to backpedal, tried to delete, but it was too late. I didn't just win the courtroom, I won the court of public opinion. That night, I sat with Chloe on the couch. She showed me a TikTok of a girl lip-syncing Vanessa's fake crying. She's kind of famous now, she joked. I smiled. Yeah, I said, but not the kind that lasts. Because legacy isn't what people say in the moment. It's what they remember after the noise dies down. And Vanessa, she built her house on sand. I built mine on truth. And truth, it never needs defending. The envelope came in soft cream paper, handwritten, no return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Vanessa's script. Too perfect to be natural, too elegant for sincerity. I didn't open it right away, didn't even touch it for the first hour. I just stared at it on the counter while Chloe did her math homework nearby. Finally, I tore it open. No apology, no remorse, just 5 pages of emotional manipulation disguised as reflection. I hope one day you'll understand why I did what I did. We were both hurting. You've poisoned Chloe against me, and I pray you find peace in that. But the last line was the kicker. Deep down, you know I was never the villain. I was just surviving. That was her whole game, wasn't it? Paint herself as the victim of circumstances she created. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just walked back to my desk, slid the letter into a manila envelope with a stamped copy of the court's fraud ruling, wrote in Sharpie across the front, "Survivors don't forge death dates for inheritance. Victims don't sell heirlooms they never earned. Mothers don't weaponize their daughters." Then I mailed it back. No note, no threat, no further contact, just the legal stamp of truth. That night, Chloe found the envelope stub in the trash. Was that from her? Yeah. You write her back? In a way. She nodded. then curled up next to me on the couch. Can we not talk about her anymore? Absolutely. We didn't need to, because some ghosts don't need to be confronted. They just need to be left behind. It rained that morning. Not a storm. Not the cinematic kind that comes with thunder and rage. Just a quiet, steady drizzle, like the world exhaling. I watched it from the porch of the house Vanessa once claimed as hers. Now, it was mine again. But more importantly, it was ours. Mine and Chloe's. Inside, I could hear her humming as she set the table for pancakes, the same off-key tune my mum used to hum. I smiled. Vanessa was gone. Not just from the house, from the city, from the headlines, from Chloe's nightmares. Last we heard, she'd taken a plea deal on the fraud charges. No jail, but stripped of access to any assets tied to my family's name. She'd filed a restraining order request against me, which was denied. She tried to sue for visitation rights. That too was denied by Chloe herself. Sometimes people asked if I missed her, if I ever looked back at the marriage and felt regret. I didn't, because revenge was never about destruction. It was about restoration. It wasn't about seeing Vanessa suffer. It was about seeing Chloe safe and seeing myself finally free. Later that evening, Chloe came into the room holding a photo. It was the old one, Mum, Chloe, and me. She'd repaired the cracked frame with glue and gold leaf. "It's called kintsugi," she said. "It's where you fix broken things by making the cracks part of the story." I looked at her, amazed. She was 13 going on 30. "We're not broken anymore, Dad," she added. "Just better designed." I pulled her into a hug, and for the first time in a long, long time, there was nothing left to fight, just something worth holding on to.